All right, so now we are going to add in a credit card info collector of some kind so we can actually start the process of doing the checkout. And of course, we are using Stripe for this one. You may have seen that already. So as far as Stripe is concerned, we need to double check to make sure all of our keys are correct and that we actually have customers inside of here. So to do that, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and go into my account settings and go to my API keys, and I'm going to refresh these, and I'm going to block the old ones immediately. And then I'm going to also, I want to delete all the test data for now. So delete now, all the test data. So deleting everything that we've ever done so far in Stripe as far as our testing is concerned. So I'm going to let this finish deleting, and then we'll come right back. Okay, so all that data was deleted. And again, grabbing these API keys. So I'm going to copy these, and we want to go into our settings where we set the API key before. So if I scroll down to the bottom, we've got our secret key here, and then our publishable key here. All right, so now we have to go back into our admin, and I have to delete the old Stripe that we had before because I just deleted all that test data. So I'm going to have to delete these as well for our customers. And what we're going to do now is we're going to log in. Log in as your user and user Stripes. It's still not creating that user Stripe. Because if you remember back when we switched it from when they logged in to when they are created, so when the account is actually created. Now, for testing purposes, that works really well, or actually long-term purposes, that will work really well. But for testing purposes, it didn't actually work for us because of what we just did. We changed our API key data, and we also deleted all the data in our Stripe account. So if we didn't delete all the data in the Stripe account, then it would be okay because the customer ID would be the same on our account, on our Django project, as well as what's on Stripe. But what we did is we changed the API keys and we deleted the account. Now, if we just changed the API keys, that's not a big deal. We would just need to change them in here and then we're good. But if we delete the information in Stripe, of course, we have to actually get new information. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and add a user Stripe for jmitchell3. And then inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and add a new customer. So you can manually create customers, and this is how you would do it. And I'm going to put Coding for Entrepreneurs and just hit Create Customer. Click on this, and we're going to grab this ID here. So this would be kind of a manual way of adding a user Stripe account. All right, so there we go. That's good. So now we want to actually put Stripe into our accounts, right? So we're going to create a custom payment form. And this is what we're going to be doing. So if you go to Stripe's documentation, so docs/tutorial/forms, or at least that's where it is right now, you want to look for a custom payment form. And this is what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this right here. And we're going to jump into the checkout.html. Under credit card info, I'm just going to paste this in here. Okay, so notice we did have that other form. So what I actually want to do is get rid of these form buttons here and give the top level form the ID of the same ID as the Stripe form. So payment form will be the ID of it. So we're going to scroll up to that other form area, which is right here. And now we have that payment form. So let's go ahead and take a look at the checkout area. Our cart's empty, so we have to add some products here. Checkout. Okay, so we've got this credit card information here, which is great. That's essentially what we want to see. If I hit submit, it doesn't actually do anything. So now, following along the Stripe tutorial, scroll down. We got to make sure that the Stripe API JavaScript is actually embedded into our project. So let's go ahead, and it says right here, it says it needs to be in the head tag inside of your template or your HTML. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to put it into base.html. So inside of base, let's just scroll down to all the JavaScript here. We have JavaScript down here. It says to put this in the head, right? We recommend putting the script tag in the head of your tag page, right? So I'm actually going to do that. Normally we put JavaScript down at the bottom, but I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to put it right before the head tag ends. All right, so that's the next part. And then we have to actually put some JavaScript in here for the publishable key. So I'm going to copy this and actually go into the checkout. But before I do that, we're going to put it into the block of jQuery. So in checkout, let's go to the very top, do block jQuery, in block. And we need a publishable key here. So I don't actually need the script stuff anymore. I just need Stripe publishable key. I actually can put script outside of the block just so Sublime Text knows to treat it as JavaScript. All right, so stripe.set publishable key is what we need here. But we don't, this is our publishable key, but this is probably not the best way to actually set it. So what we're going to do then is on the view for checkout.html, we'll look in, so checkout, this view, we're going to set the API key in here. So the API key, of course, is in the settings file. This is the publishable key right here. So what we want to do in views is we're going to import it, the settings, so from django.conf, import settings. And here what I'm going to do is try, and I'll do Stripe pub equals to settings dot Stripe publishable key. So I'm just going to copy that whole thing right there. Stripe pub equals to, so I'm just doing a default here just in case if for some reason it's not actually working. We actually would probably want to raise a implementation error. That'd be, instead of having a default for the exception, we would do raise not implemented error. And then we can actually specify the error by saying exception and then E. So E is a variable that we're setting. We would return the string of E. So this would actually give us that error. So you can see what the error is by printing out the string of E as well. So this might be something that you'd want to do anyway, just so you can see it in the terminal as well. So let's go ahead and try this out. If I did 2 and I went back in here and refreshed, we see settings object has no attribute, Stripe publishable key 2. But if I just change it back to just the regular one, there's no error. So that is how you would do implementation errors in general. It's just a nice little introduction to that. So if there's something on your settings that you needed, like marketing hours offset, you would use that implementation error if it was not actually implemented. So that is something you'll definitely see with other, third-party packages. Sometimes you'll see this not implemented error, and it would look something like what we had. So if I, again, change this back to a 2, it will look something like this, or definitely will look like something like this. All right. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's scroll down to getting and putting in the publishable key being the Stripe pub. So I'll just do Stripe pub and Stripe pub. So something you should note is this will raise that error no matter what. So this is definitely going to be there, right? If that error is being raised, then we've got a problem, and we have to do it on the the actual code level, where with some of our other stuff we wouldn't necessarily do it in that method. So if we go back in here and I do a refresh, well, no errors come through, which is good. So now I want to use Stripe pub in checkout, and I'm going to put it here. Definitely leave those quotes there still. So now if I refresh in here, that's a good start. Let's go ahead and inspect the element to see if there's any errors in our console. I don't see any errors, which is good. So now we just need to complete the payment form. So going back into Stripe, we can create it. We first need to create a single use token. So that's this function right here. So go ahead and copy that. And we're going to paste it right under the publishable key here. Just going to give a couple enters to give it some space. Scroll down a little bit further, and we're going to send the form to our server. Go ahead and copy that. couple more enters, and there we go. So the payment form is this, and this is gonna kind of handle everything for us as far as sending the form itself, right? So it creates the token, and then it uses this response handler. So that's what this is doing right here. So Stripe create token is using this, and then the form itself again is payment form. So if you didn't, or if you notice the idea form here, and we scroll down, we see payment form here as well. So that's where that's coming from. So this is going to do the entire function of actually checking whether or not the form is coming through. And then another thing that you should notice is it appends this hidden form, which is Stripe token. So this hidden input is essentially what's going to be sending our token into our server. So let's go back into our store here and in the checkout. And I'm just going to reload the page, hit submit payment. Notice it says this card number looks invalid. That's perfect. That's what we want to see. We want to see an error like that if it's there. So 4242, if we check this out, doing this 4 more times with the total of 16 digits is how you do that. So 42 a few times there. And then if I did a month that already passed, hit submit, or a year that already passed, it says the expiration is invalid. So it's doing a lot of these checks for us, which is good. If I did one that is coming up, the token is created, and then the card is essentially, or the token for the card, the Stripe token here, is sent to our server. Okay, so let's actually see what happens in our views with the post data coming through. So I don't have anything in here saying if request method is post. So now what I'll do is if, not capitalized, but if request.method equals to post, print request.post Stripe token. And how we know it's Stripe token like that is from here. So this is the name right there. So that's what we can use right here. So this will give us a token for that specific card. So especially when it's being entered. So if I do it again, paste it a couple times, 1, 2, 3, 4 times, CVC, a date that hasn't expired, hit submit. Nothing looks like it happened, but if we look on here, we see that there's this token, and that token right there is the credit card token, right? So now we can actually start to associate that credit card to our user. So this is where we will leave it for now. In the next one, we'll actually associate the user's credit card here, and then we will also probably add in somewhere in here, or at least a save credit card button here, check mark, because if they want to save it, then we should have it in there. It's going to be assigned or associated to their account one way or another, but we might want to have it where it's saved on the Django server side too. So that's another thing that we'll look at as well. But in the next one, what we'll actually do is finish off adding the credit card and actually run the transaction, and then we'll come back and kind of clean up everything else. All right, we'll see you.